I know that you've all been prepared for this, but I thought I'd just remind you just the same.
Can you handle that, Blondie?
Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
It was pure evil.
I want to buy some radio ad time.
And we're back with another episode of Invasion of the Potty Snatchers. I'm your host, Vincent Green. He's your host, Noel John Tootie. So let's get to it. Alright, Noel, I brought you back, and this time we're going to be on board of the Icarus 2 with the Danny Boyle directed movie Sunshine from 2007, written by Alex Garland, starring Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, Chris Evans, and a big ensemble cast as they race to the sun to try to save humanity. As the sun is dying, they're trying to reignite it with a nuclear bomb of sorts. What do you think of this movie when it came out and so forth and all? You know how it goes.
I went to it in the cinema, and that was the only time I'd seen it, and I thought I remembered it better than I actually did. Don't get me wrong, I remembered a few of the key deaths because it's such a high concept space film. They're always such visual spectacles that you take it in, but I forgot how strong a cast, like Chris Evans before he was Captain America.
Yeah.
Actually, a stellar performance by him.
The cast itself would kind of remind you of Event Horizon. We kind of spoke about this last time.
Well, this is why we're here, isn't it? Because if we didn't do Event Horizon...
Exactly. Like, if you look at the cast, they're all like superstars on the cusp.
On the cusp.
Yeah, like
yes.
Event Horizon in a lot of ways, even though I know Sam Neill was already a superstar from Jurassic Park and whatnot, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The comparisons are there.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, Cillian Murphy had, like, you know, Chris Evans had Fantastic Four under his belt, and Cillian Murphy had Batman being the bad guy in the first Christian Bale Batman.
28 Days Later as well.
28 Days Later was under the belt as well. That's probably a better example, actually, because he's the main character. But at the same time, he didn't have Peaky Blinders.
Oh, yeah, Peaky Blinders.
You know, and
that's the thing that he'll be remembered for forever.
Oh, it will. No, it will. I mean, he was immersed in the world there for years and hours of film. But yeah, a stellar cast. It's it's Event Horizon done better. If I'm going to be honest about it, it's just the execution was better. The science seemed more solid.
Asked a lot of similar questions, but in a slightly different way.
Exactly, yeah, and
maybe in a more profound way.
Yes, and I, honest to God, even though Event Horizon was about a literal hellmouth, like a literal hellmouth that feeds on your fear, somehow I found Sunshine to be more desperate, more sad and hollow.
I think Sunshine, a lot of it's like what happens when a man is faced with his God, and in this case, the deity, like in ancient times, is the sun. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like this is what happens with we find out later with the Icarus one and stuff. But it's all about what happens when man is confronted with a god or the god or whatever. Yeah. And does he keep his mind? Does he lose his mind? Does he become one with the god or whatever? And I think that's the kind of questions they're asking throughout this. You know what I mean? Like the sun takes the place of God in the way black holes take the place of hell nearly in Event Horizon. You know,
the real question in this film, and I want to make this clear because it's just an opinion to the fact, is the fact that they made a ship called Icarus, and they sent it up to the sun, and something bad happened. So they sent up another ship, which they named Icarus.
Yeah, but the thing is, wasn't it Icarus's son that actually died, not him himself?
Was it?
Or no, was Icarus their son? No, I
thought Icarus. It was Icarus who flew too close to the sun. That's what I have in my head.
Yeah.
With the wax that held the wings together melted. So I just thought it was.
Yeah, Icarus was the son. Yeah, that's the mix. So I thought that Icarus was the father for a second. It's Daedalus. I don't know, ancient Greek name.
Yeah, you could there was ancient fire gods, and you could have called him Mercury or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I know they went with Icarus, which was.
Do you think because they actually needed to fly too close to the sun?
Yeah, actually. Well, fair point. Because that's the thing that they did touch upon is that I think Chris Evans' character Macy, is that correct? Mace. Yeah. He says it when they realise that they're close enough to the Icarus one. He says, "Look, the crew on that ship is entirely expendable. Yeah, as are we." Yeah.
No, I think Cliff Curtis says that.
Cliff Curtis. Well, they both actually. Yeah, no, you're right. Cliff Curtis says it. Yeah. Sorry. And his character was called?
Well, 1 second there, brother. His character was Cliff Curtis. Was Cyril.
Cyril, the ship's psych, who was pretty much crazy from World 1.
Yeah,
But,
he's kind of lost in the ginormity, if that's even a word.
No, I think it's a lovely word.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
of the mission, of what the implications of what they have to do, what he's facing, his place in the universe. And like if you're on a quest like that, there's so many questions and there's so much time you have to ask these questions that they're going to start weighing on you in different ways. And you can see by the time they get to Mercury, is it? That you know what I mean, they're all mentally drained even at that stage, and they're only on the way to the sun, let alone on the way home yet, like, you know.
Yeah. But the thing about, I suppose what they're thinking is, being going home is going home. Hopefully you've done what you were set there to do.
Yeah.
It's not like a trip of two halves. If the first half goes well, the second half can take care of itself.
Yeah, the second half can happen. You know,
the second half can even happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, it kind of had everyone. You had your like pilot and your tech and stuff like that, but you even had the cowardly second in command.
Yeah.
Never ever move away from that trope. I always love it.
Yeah, that's the guy who plays. If anyone's ever seen Ballers, he's like an agent in Ballers.
Is he?
Yeah, he plays like Jay. I think his name was Jay or Jason or something.
A real suave character, I assume.
Yeah, well, yeah. He's kind of like Jeremy Piven-ish, you know, like if anyone's ever seen Entourage. But so like it's the age-old sci-fi, not even an age-old sci-fi trope. It's like a Mariner type trope that you have the brave captain, like in Canada, who's willing to risk it all, and you have the weaseling second in command, that you know, the communications officer, whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like so. Like, and then you have, you know, the brave scientists who obviously, you know, Cillian Murphy wasn't on Icarus 1, but because Icarus 1 failed, they're obviously like, maybe there was something to do with the bomb, so we have to send up the guy who invented the bomb the second time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which made sense. Like, but I like a lot of the tropes that are like not even played out, but the ones that they use, and the cast is really strong as well. So each one, there's no real weak links, you know?
Exactly. And if this was like Star Trek, you could have a ship with 15 to 16 main characters and ensigns and privates, and you could have touch upon all of the kind of quirks of the human persona. Yeah. But this one had a crew of, I'm going to take a stab at the number 8.
Yeah. So
I know there was 8 in the first one. I think it was probably about 8. So you really just had to have one of everyone. Yeah. And there was the captain who knew his mission. There was the engineer, Chris Evans Mace, who was pragmatic.
Yeah, Mr. Mission, like it was
Mr. Mission.
Yeah,
let's die. Let's do whatever it takes.
Yeah,
there was one job and everything else. And but then you're kind of wondering, how did the coward get on this ship of all ships?
He's obviously a genius with communications.
Yeah.
He never expected to walk off the Icarus. That's the thing. Like, you know, when he had to go to Icarus 2, that's when he kind of falls apart. You know.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I think it's when he becomes in command. We'll touch upon later. That's kind of when he falls apart. He was kind of okay before that, and I think as soon as he was put in a pressure position, he was the wrong person to take over for Canada and stuff.
Oh yeah,
you know, because I think it was probably Chris Evans' character, Mace, might be in the best. Yeah, either that or the Japanese woman. I think she was Japanese. Sorry, Michelle Yeoh. Actually, I'm not sure if she's Japanese. I think she might be Chinese.
I think she is Chinese. I think she's had a very storied Chinese film career. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, she was born in Western Malaysia. She's of Han Chinese descent. Okay, I'm not going to go into her whole genealogy, but like, so
she's a wonderful actress.
Yeah,
even when I've seen her, I just like, you know, I know who she is now, and I've seen her in a lot more movies, and I just like her. I was real happy to see her. I thought like, more strength in the cast, basically.
Yeah, even Corazon, she could have been maybe a better captain. There's so many, but you know, so like,
it should have been Mace, and for 2 reasons. I know we want to get into the film kind of in some sort of chronological order.
Yeah.
But when they needed to fix the heat shield, your man says, "I volunteer, but I volunteer him."
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing that made sense. And then later, when they need Cillian Murphy's character for the bomb, he basically sets himself up to die because that was the pragmatic thing to do then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was only pragmatism in everything.
He's the reason it succeeds in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even when he gets trapped later, you know, he's willing to sacrifice himself. So he proves that it's not about you or me, and we're literally just pawns.
Yeah.
And the king is this bomb.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all there is. The game's over if we lose that. So I thought he was just an excellent character, and it was great. I know Chris Evans actually does have depth, but he's forever kind of Captain America now.
Yeah. Well, even he played Captain America with real depth at times too.
He did. No, he absolutely did. And Captain America was actually a complex character, but still a superhero character nonetheless.
One of my favorite of all the MCU characters, probably definitely up there in my top 2. Him and Rocket Raccoon.
Everyone's favorite superhero, Batman. Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, he's fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to love Rocket Raccoon. I honest to God thought it should have been him, but I looked at this cast and I didn't see any weakness. And I looked at the story. They explained it briefly. It's just the sun is dying, so they're going to try and ignite a star inside of a star with a nuclear payload the size of Manhattan.
Yeah.
The island of Manhattan. And that just sets it up really, really well. As in, it's not. I suppose that's one real thing it had over like something like Event Horizon. Worst case scenario, everybody upon the Event Horizon dies.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, everybody dies.
Yeah, mankind dies.
Mankind, everyone. In fact, the ones on the ship might have slightly less cruel deaths than freezing to death on a barren planet, you know?
Yeah.
So, absolutely excellent. High concept. Not that me or your dumbass knows absolutely anything about the physics or anything of it, but it felt fluid. It felt like it made
looks
sense.
real, is real.
Yeah.
That's my rule of movies.
Yeah, when your man wants, like, you know, to see the sun at 2%, then he's like, turn up to 4%, and she's like, no, that would, you know, the Icarus ship tells him that would burn out your retinas.
Yeah,
you could watch
irreparable damage.
Yeah, you could watch it for 30 seconds at 3.1%. And I was sitting there going, yeah, 3.1%, 30 seconds. Science checks out. Yeah, science checks.
I just haven't seen it. No, you're just there in front of like a whiteboard, and you're like working out equations and stuff.
39 million miles out, approaching.
Carry them on
the dark side of Mercury.
3.1%. Yeah, factor in the shadow from Mercury.
Yeah. I was just sitting here, like, you know, with my monocle, and I was just like, 3.1% checks out.
Yeah, it's like, sounds good.
But I don't know. Do you know when it just feels solid?
Yeah.
It just felt like they actually had thought it out.
I think Brian Cox, who's an actual astrophysicist, worked on this movie or consulted on this movie or something to try to get the science is real. And it was written by Alex Garland, who went on later to write and direct Ex Machina, and he went and did Debs on the TV series, like a mini series starring Timothy Offerman from Parks and Recreations, and like is it Nick
Offerman?
Nick Offerman, yeah. Two of us came to the conclusion at the same time there.
Yeah.
In sync. He's big into these high concepts. Is pretty much the I was, you know, bambering on.
Massive concept.
Yeah, like this is what he does. He likes to ask big questions. You do like. And he leaves the answers sometimes open-ended. Like if you ever seen Devs, it's like, well, like I think his stories really lean themselves to visual like masterpieces. Now, like they're just eye candy in the best possible way. You know what I mean? Like it's like if you look at Ex Machina and the movements of Alicia Vikander, their interactions with Donald Gleason and Oscar Isaacs, and just the whole aesthetics. I know a lot, like, you know, and you look at Devs. And the whole, I'm not sure if you've seen Devs, but like it's a mini series. The whole thing is beautiful from start to finish. And like, if you like, I just think his stories. I think he might have even written. I'm not sure if he directed, but Dread, starring Carl Urban. But like, aside from that, he offers up a lot of high concept storytelling, and it just lends itself to really good, you know, visual kind of fucking storytelling shit. And I think him and Danny Boyle, kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of meshed well, or their styles meshed well, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, Danny Boyle didn't shy away at all from the high concept nature of the film.
Yeah.
It just seems to be very, very solid throughout. It just seemed to flow. I don't know. I was immersed, I suppose is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like everything from the aesthetic to the actors to the storytelling just worked. It just worked. It just felt like one. You know, for me, it's not a film that was broken down into parts. I know, like, shit goes wrong here, as these space films always do.
Yeah.
But it just felt like literally they were just trying to do one thing, get this bloody payload to the sun.
Yeah, they say the word
everything
payload
just
a lot
felt.
in this movie.
Oh, they say the word payload an awful lot. And but it just felt, I don't know, the movie felt fluid. I've been able to watch it a second time and just really appreciate it. I really be able to take it in. I just thought, what an excellent storytelling, excellent film.
Yeah, and like, so just to kind of jump into it, like as you described, it's a crew on this ship called the Icarus 2. What happened to Icarus 1? Well, so and they're on their way to reignite the sun because it's dying. The whole world is stuck in a solar winter, and mankind is like on its last legs or whatever. And like the opening scene is insane, where you see like Cliff Curtis's character Cyril, and he's sitting in the observation deck. And as you mentioned, like this is where he's kind of, he shows he has this weird obsession with the sunlight and the heat, and I think it's just the immenseness of it, or something being lost in it, or something, and
also the forefront of it. It's not like you're sitting experiencing something that has been experienced by either maybe one other person or nobody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So like, you just think like he just thinks it's this weird singular feeling that it was an obsession for him or something.
Yeah, and that's how we're introduced to him.
Yeah,
literally introduced to him.
Yeah, the 3.1 scene.
Yeah, the 3.1 scene. I was like, yes, seems about right. They'll soon be entering the dark zone, I fear.
And after that scene, so now we get introduced to the rest of the crew. Pretty much, we just kind of jump straight into it. We touched on Captain Canada, Corazano. Corazan. Kappa, that's Cillian Murphy. Michelle Yeoh's Corazan. Hiroyuki Sanada, it plays Kaneda. Rose Byrne is Cassidy. Benedict Wong. This cast is stacked. Like Benedict Wong, who we all know from Doctor Strange, plays Trey. Chris Evans is Mace. Like Mark Strong. You can keep going down along this list. The cast is just ridiculously strong.
Yeah. The cast is ridiculously strong, and there was a lot of gravity to every character.
Yeah.
And everybody obviously had a very they were so had to reserve oxygen, water supplies, and what have you, that there was one of everyone.
Yeah.
There wasn't two.
Skeleton crew, because the ship is so advanced.
Because the ship is so advanced, they had a skeleton crew.
Yeah, because you're literally just steering, point and aim, isn't it? Really, like.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. It's just fantastic. But yeah, we're kind of introduced to the first problem, and it's kind of adorable when you consider the problems that are about 4 minutes away.
Shit's about to go down.
Yeah, and the captain informs them that we're hitting the dark zone, as in just because of I think probably the magnetic radiation of the sun, because they wouldn't be able to get a signal out, basically.
Yeah, I think, because they're entering it 7 days earlier than scheduled.
And so they all send off they're told they have to send off their last messages back home until probably a couple of years, actually, because they have to get to the sun and then they have to begin their return journey.
Yeah.
And then they're all a little bit like, oh no, this is absolutely terrible, and I'm thinking, yeah, buckle up, Buttercup.
And so after they send their messages home and shit like that, it's soon. Is it soon after that they're going towards
Mercury,
going on Mercury, past Mercury, onto the other side of Mercury, and is it around now to start getting the comms officer is it now he starts getting I think it's what he says is the magnetic iron or some shit on Mercury is working like a satellite. And
we're picking up a signal.
And what is he doing? Do you know when he says he's picking up the signal? He looks like he's basking his head or like in green lasers or something. You know what I mean?
Mace calls it space music. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Just, I think it must be like, space does have an ambient sound, apparently. So, I could understand it, but, it's never really explained.
Yeah.
But he recognized it as being dun dun dun. Icarus One's, what's the word? Their transponder, their emergency signal.
Yeah.
And this is good. This is actually, this is just, for me, it's like solid logic in the next scene where Mace kind of says, "Oh, really? So?" and they're saying what they think because they have to catapult around the planet because not to get dragged into its gravitational pull.
15,000 miles off course.
Yeah, which is nothing.
in space.
When you're thinking, 93 million miles to the sun, you're 15,000 miles, and you're on the far side of Mercury.
Yeah,
man, you got close. So he's just like, no, of course not. They're expendable. We're expendable. We don't need to do this. And then, but then there is an argument, and it is not a bad argument made by Searle, and that is that 2 last chances are better than 1.
Yeah.
There's 2 bombs. Because the bomb even working is purely theoretical. When it gets too close to the sun, there's literally too many quantum possibilities, as in the amount of possibilities is inconceivable, even for a computer.
Yeah, because Cillian Murphy shows in the next, because pretty much, because he's the guy we touched on earlier.
Yeah, they said they weren't going to do a vote.
Yeah.
The person who's going to decide is the person who's best. They're scientists.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
best informed person.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best informed person should make the decision.
And that responsibility falls on Cillian Murphy's character Kappa, because we find out he's the one that designed or built these neutron bombs or nuclear bombs or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And he starts going into a room and starts running simulations, yes, the word. And he's like running all these permutations and stuff, that what will happen, how will this affect it or whatever. And then he realizes that it doesn't matter what how many simulations he runs, it comes to a certain point where space, or as Sam Neill likes to say in Event Horizon, when space-time, and but when space and time becomes so intertwined that it's impossible to understand or to know what way the bomb is going to react with the sun, and the sun is going to react with the bomb. And so he decides, as you said, and as Cliff Curtis said, two last chances are better than 1 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's it. Because he said he got into the science with the Captain Canada a little bit, and obviously, unfortunately, that runs him into a circle. He said it's like flipping a coin.
Yeah.
Like that, you're talking about quantum possibilities, and he breaks it down to flipping a coin, because he's either right or he's wrong.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. But then he said Searle's argument is sound.
Yeah.
2 last chances are better than 1.
Yeah.
And it's only like,
so
it's 15,000 miles compared to 93 million miles that you have to travel. You know what I mean? Like, it's the smallest of detours.
And there could be somebody alive on Icarus 1 for all you know.
Yes, actually, that there was theoretically. They agreed that wasn't
not
the reason
crew.
You could go there.
Yeah, not the whole.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, but
God, no. And so decide to do it. They decide to, and this leads us to our first actual disaster.
Yeah, and so pretty much what happens is when they changed their approach to the sun, the angle of the ship changed with it. And because of this detour they had to make to Icarus 1, the shields were not lined up correctly. I think it's 1.1 degrees or something they were off by, or something.
Trey apparently literally, I don't know what he really was. I guess he was the physicist on board, the plot corrections, navigation, all of that sort of stuff. Him and Cillian Murphy's characters would have been the brains.
Yeah. I think they're all the brains.
There was actually, but Trey and Kappa, but Trey literally forgets to take an entire aspect into account.
Yeah.
He did not calculate for something. So despite the fact that he ran the numbers 1,000 times, there's an entire aspect of the equation, it seems, that he forgot to run.
Yeah, he forgot to redirect the shields.
Yes, and they're off by 1.1 degrees.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Something really small.
Yeah.
But
infinitesimally small.
What we're talking about, the sun, one mistake.
You're talking about the sun, obviously, yeah. It's 1.1 degrees too much. But the captain this is what Canada brought to the crew, was obviously, he was always level-headed, never rose his voice or anything.
Yeah.
He said, we're not dead. The sun hasn't burned a hole in the side of the ship yet. What do we need to do to fix it? And then they're like all volunteer to go out because they need to fix the heat shield. They need to adjust for their new trajectory.
Yeah.
And the captain volunteers himself because he's expendable as far as he's concerned. Because, he is just the person who gives the command.
Yeah.
But he absolutely doesn't know how to deliver the payload. So he's not. But Mace actually kind of at that point says, no, I think I volunteer Keppa.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really get, but I guess it was a pragmatic thing to do at the time.
Yeah, because he was the best one to fix the shields or whatever.
Because he had the best understanding of it.
Yeah, and I think he was a little bit angry at him as well for making the decision to...
Oh, yeah, and that's what I thought at the time. But you kind of, as his character fleshes out, you realize that he's definitely got like an anger problem.
Yeah.
But he can be immature even in ways. But he is 100% pragmatic about the mission. Nobody's as determined as him. Maybe not even. Thank you. Maybe not even the captain.
Yeah. And so, like, this is where we get introduced to the really unique looking spacesuits in this movie. They're awesome, aren't they? I assume for reflecting sunlight. I assume that's.
But this is where I think the science was quite sound.
Yeah,
they actually look like they must have been designed with some sort of like a literal heat shield built into it.
Look like deep diving suits. Remember those old ones?
They even had like water. You know, you were supposed to take water every 15 seconds or whatever, because obviously you're losing water.
Yeah.
And they can measure that, and they were measuring how quickly they were breathing.
Yeah.
And it was just
the suits look so heavy as well, didn't they?
But this is the first real tension. Like the tension was very palpable at this point.
Yeah, and like this is where we see the movie starting to use one of its major strengths. It's a score. Like Danny Boyle movies in particular, he loves to use music and stuff to really enhance scenes. I know a lot of directors do, but he's got real kinship with how he uses his score and stuff. And in this scene and in this movie, the soundtrack is absolutely incredible. Like it's really beautiful. You know what I mean? It's really mind blowing. Like you know what I mean? It's really, really good.
This is probably the first time you feel it as well, because I remember I can't hear the soundtrack is to steal away from the film. It's not something like so super catchy or that you're singing it like dun 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 dun. It's not that at all. It's to set a mood. But I just remember it being just very tensive, held notes.
Yeah, and it slow builds,
suspense.
Yeah,
like you're literally about to do a spacewalk on the far side of Mercury.
Yeah,
you're in a suit. It's just a suit between you and the sun, which at this point is 10 million miles away or something.
Yeah, and they're not even like strapped to the yoke or anything. They're just kind of mag boots or something. They're just walking around for.
That was kind of unclear. But they weren't at all. So they get out there and they start fixing the heat shields, and it looks like they can do it. But something goes wrong. Would you believe something goes wrong?
So what happens is because of the miscalculation by Trey, comm towers 2 and 3 get burnt up by the sun, and I
think they knew that was going to happen. Actually,
but the problem is when I think it's the number 3, it's either the second or third one, but pretty much when it's on like a turn, one of them gets hit by a solar flare or something.
And it reflects the light. Yeah, it reflects it. Yeah.
And it shoots down into their oxygen garden and starts a fire and starts burning out their oxygen supplies. And because of that too, I think is it the sun starts to come over. I think the problem is throughout this, Rose Byrne mentioned how she wants to give him as much shade as possible. I think when the ship is starting to turn at a rate quicker than they thought or some shit like that, and the sun starts to eclipse the shields and coming over like the horizon of the Icarus too, and they get the shields fixed or whatever, and then they're making their way back in, and Cillian Murphy's like ahead of Captain Canada, and so pretty much I think Chris Evans makes the decision along with Captain Canada, to pretty much not even just leave them out there, but make no attempt to turn the ship backwards. Because they couldn't get any further off their course or trajectory or some shit, I think.
Yeah, because Cassie wants to save them, and Mace goes, "No, we're not doing that, Captain. Back me up." Yeah. And the Captain's literally the one whose ass is directly on the line of fire.
He's running simulations. I remember it keeps coming up 61% chance of failure, 70% chance of failure, or some shit like that. Like I think in front of him, and then he runs 3 or 4 different simulations and realizes the probability of them surviving are very low. And I think that's when he makes the decision that we're going to have to fucking, sacrifice them or make no attempt to help them. They come in or they don't.
They make it or they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But when even Mace goes, "Captain, back me up," and the captain without just kind of shows the strength of character. The captain goes,
why he was the captain, wasn't it? Canadian,
that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's really could have done with him the second half of this movie, though.
But see, that makes him the perfect character.
Because they're rudderless after that.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody's, everyone's a scientist and everyone's got a specialty. But he was kind of the spearhead. He was the one who could break the tension, give an order that you can follow. Like, don't worry about this. This is your order.
Yeah.
Do this right now.
Yeah. It's all about decision making. It's not like, you know what I mean?
So they have to drown out their garden with O2 just to kill, because they were saying, no, we'll lose the garden. And May says, we've already lost the garden.
Chris Evans fucking saves him again here.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's on the ball actually all over this movie.
Oh my God, it's just great to see him, because he's just such a serious actor in this. It's not. I know it's so fantastical, but for some reason it doesn't feel fantastical.
Yeah,
it feels like a scientific endeavor.
Yeah,
and he's just.
It feels real. It is real. It's one of those.
Yeah,
things.
Well, that's well, especially a film with a good score, good actors. You're immersed. But he tells Kaneda tells Keppa just to head back. He'll be with him just a minute later, because that's always what people do.
Yeah.
But of course he isn't. He manages the very last thing he manages to do is to fix the heat shield to a respectable degree that they're not in direct, at least immediate danger for another 3 to 4 minutes of storytelling. But of course he's the first to die. And what's really surreal is Cyril, who's obsessed with the sun, gets into the captain's ear and asks him, "What are you seeing?"
Yeah.
He just wanted to hear what you've seen as he died.
Yeah, it's like a tsunami of sunlight.
A tsunami of sunlight. But he said, but I was thinking, like, you're the psych officer, because you're like, they're going to need you right now.
Yeah.
and you're like, he's already got like, he's already got scabs.
Yeah.
Like, he's already got scabs on his face.
He's like a light junkie or something. It's really weird.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's it. That the Keppa makes it back. We've lost the captain.
Yeah.
And
this is the first death.
This is the first death. Yeah. And then they realize that they don't have enough oxygen to get there and back in the reserves. Yeah. No, they've enough oxygen to get there, but not back. Yeah. So it's essentially a death sentence. But they have to be up with the Icarus 2 and maybe see what they can salvage from there. And
yeah, because the remaining oxygen they have, they need to lose 3 of the crew for the rest of them to get there. That's what your one says.
As in lose 2. They need to lose 2, having already lost 1.
Corazon,
yeah. Corazon is how I think it was.
Kind of sounds Italian. So like she says that they're going to need to lose 3 breeders or whatever, and so they decide now that they've no choice, as you said, but to link up with Icarus 1, see what went on there, see what they can scavenge, because they think that the oxygen gardens might still be alive or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And they do, and they dock, and they get on, which is it was completely set up for like more absolute instant failure, but they seem to get this much done right.
They are geniuses.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a fair observation. Yeah. Is that the average IQ is 1 billion, or the average IQ 180 upwards or something. But this, oh god, there's so much to unpack here. Like, I'm not going to do a good job of it. It was the coupling. Yeah. The coupling gives way, but for reasons that aren't really.
No, that's later.
Later? Yeah. Go ahead, you take it then.
So pretty much what happens is they find the Icarus 1 and then they dock with it or whatever. And then they send in a crew to investigate to see see if the payload's intact, to see what happened with the Icarus 2, if there's any crew alive, to check out the oxygen garden.
Yes.
So who goes on board is what is the comms officer's name? Because I keep just calling him comms officer. The comms officer.
He was kind of the least likable guy. Harvey.
Yeah. So
there you go. His name was Harvey, and you couldn't remember it.
Yeah, it's just what. Yeah, Harveys are never good.
Harveys are never good.
So yeah, Harvey, Keppa goes on. Cyril goes on. Like so, pretty much like all of them except for I think 2 of them or 3 of them. Yeah, because Trey's on suicide watch, and Rose Byrne, Michelle Yeoh.
Well, he's catatonic. Yeah, because he was giving hope. It looked like it was going to work out, and then it didn't. And he got his own captain killed. Yeah, and he got his own oxygen garden burned. Yeah, and he's lost in space. So like obviously it was just too much for the human psyche to take. Yeah. Yeah. So they send over quite a lot of their crew, really, don't they?
Yeah, because they have to scatter through. They all have to hit up different sections. Because I love this part though. They go on and. Chris Evans goes, I think we should split up, cover more ground or whatever. And Harvey's like, no, I think it'd be better if we stick together. And Chris Evans is like, why? In case we get picked off one by aliens.
That's the thing. Mace was just such a badass character. And Chris Evans really does him justice. But we go to the observation deck. I always thought that was a very cool scene because it was obviously foreshadowing as much as anything.
But do
especially,
you remember though when they came on the Icarus 1, they start seeing flashes of people's faces?
Yeah, and they said dust as well. They complained about dust, and the man went human skin.
Yeah,
20% of dust is human skin.
I'm like, not comforting, dude.
Not comforting, dude. Yeah,
there's a lot of dust there if it's human skin. Like a lot of dust.
It should have had the G.I. Joe, the more you know kind of thing come up on the screen.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Hey kid, stop all your download.
But yeah, I just thought that was a cool scene. They have a look around the ship. But I'm sorry, the next thing that jumps out to me is that they see the observation. Oh, they see the captain's log.
Yeah.
Pinbacker.
Is that his
Pinbacker.
name? Pinbacker.
Yeah, I think so. And he was Pinbacker, played by Mark Strong.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, God, Mark Strong again, somebody who I didn't know at the time, and now I've seen him in everything. God, he's been in Sherlock Holmes, he's been in Shazam,
Kick-Ass.
He's been in Kick-Ass. That's right. He just shows up. He's usually a bad guy. I reckon he's usually a bad guy, and he's actually probably a lovely guy.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He's brilliant in the Kingsman movies. I actually just watched them the other day. He plays Merlin in the Kingsman movies. I love those movies. So they're going throughout the ship. It's covered in dust. They decide Keppa's going to go check the payload. Harvey's going to go check the oxygen garden, and Cliff Curtis, of course, is going to go check the observation deck. And who else was with them? Chris Evans. Where did Chris Evans go? He went to check.
Chris Evans is mate.
Yeah, he goes to check the coolant area, the drives or the engines or something, and he goes to check that. And he
goes to check the mainframe.
Yeah,
he seems to have a lot of He seems to have a lot of expertise around that.
That must be why he's there. That must be his part of the mission, pretty much.
I think, yeah.
And so he goes to scope out that, or they all go to scope out different areas of the ship. And throughout this, we start seeing flashes of people's faces. They look like, happy. They kind of wearing tropical-looking shirts. Some of them are and stuff. And as we go across along the ship, somebody comes up to something and he starts cleaning off a picture. And we see that all the faces that have been flashing up were actually the crew of the Icarus 1. And around this time is the scene you were touching on where Cliff Curtis, Cyril, comes across the observation deck of the Icarus 1. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, because it kind of had flashes in my head of Pompeii.
Yeah.
Like people killed by such unimaginable temperatures that they literally flash. I was about to say flash freeze, which is obviously the exact opposite. Yeah. But they're just literally killed so instantaneously and dried to husks so instantaneously.
Like flash heated or something, for lack of a better term,
Yeah. And that you can see them. I mean, you could see that the glasses that the guy was wearing were still there.
Yeah.
On his what would have been in his face. And you just realise it's great when you can figure out so much without any words being spoken.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think their mainframe or something might have been fried.
Terrifying, though, to find that.
Terrifying.
Because you're on the exact same mission they just did.
Yeah. I think somebody touches on that.
Yeah.
He goes, we know what. Yeah. Keppa says later, he goes, I think we know what happened to the Icarus 1 because it's happening to us right now.
You know what I mean? Because how scary would that be? It's like, do you know what I love about all sailing movies or whatever? When they get to the edge of the known world or whatever, or they're following this shit that's gone missing, and you get to a point where you start running through your head, what happened to them, and is it going to happen to us? When does it happen to us? Is it inevitable what happened to them, or is what happening to us exactly what happened to them already? And you're playing with through all these computations, you know what I mean? And if you find these dead bodies and you're like, okay, we know they all got wiped out. There was a coolant failure. What caused the coolant failure?
Oh, yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? And you start running through all these doomsday scenarios in your head.
And then you have Billy. Billy from Predator is always the one that pops into my head. It's a guy who's supposed to know everything, and he's going, there's gunfire every direction.
Yeah.
But no one just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Oh, man.
There's always the guy. Yeah, there's always the guy who's supposed to know, and he just makes everything worse because he doesn't.
Yeah, it's like that scene. The scene, obviously, with Billy. Poncho. It's like, what's wrong, Billy? And he goes there's something out there, Poncho. And he goes, I'm afraid. And he goes, bullshit, Billy. You ain't afraid of no man. And he's like, there's
something out there, Pancho.
And it ain't no man. That's one of the greatest fucking lines. Come on.
Oh, it's one.
Oh my God. Like, that's like, and then, I don't have to go too far off topic, but that's when Carl Weathers goes, your man's losing it or whatever. And then okay, fuck, if Billy's losing it, we're fucked.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like when Cyril starts losing it as well in this movie. You're kind of fucked. You know what I mean? Because he's supposed to be the guy, the reasoning guy.
Exactly. Actually, let's jump to that. Obviously, they get whatever information they're going to get, but this is when there seems to have been something's gone catastrophically wrong.
Yeah, catastrophic malfunction.
And they're cut off. The Icarus 2 is cut off from the Icarus 1.
Pretty much what happens is the airlock is blown in half. That creates the docking or the coupling, as you said.
Exactly.
We sound so sciencey.
They called it an umbilicus in Event Horizon. And I remember that. I was like, yes, umbilicus.
And so pretty much the airlock gets blown in half, and then the Icarus 1 and the Icarus 2 start to drift apart. And everyone that's on board the Icarus 1 starts rushing to the airlock. Like, it's Chris Evans, Cliff Curtis.
Mace. You keep saying Chris Evans. It's Mace.
Sorry. Mace, Cyril, Kepa, Harvey, I think they're all the only ones on board. And they all rush to the airlock to see that they're fucked pretty much. And Rose Byrne's character, I don't think we just... Cassie gets on the communications, and she says to them that they're pretty much screwed, that she can't link back up because the airlock is blown, that there's no... there's decompression. So what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like not airtight or whatever, for lack of a better term. And I lost my sciencey badge pretty quickly there. And so like they're pretty much screwed, or at least like one of them isn't, as Chris Evans kind of says that when he runs over. Once again, keeps his head in every scenario in this movie.
Word one to what? Yeah. Canada, the captain, is the only one you could say the absolute same about. Yeah. But he was in the film for such a short time.
Yeah.
He established himself. He did a great job.
You know what I mean? He was showing his captain abilities.
I believe he's going to be Scorpion.
You know what I mean?
He's going to be Scorpion in the upcoming Mortal Kombat movie, and I'm really happy for him.
Who is Chris Evans?
No, Canada.
Canada. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about Chris Evans. I was like, the internet is not going to like that.
No, the internet's not going to like that.
His name is Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's close enough.
But anyway, back to the film. Mace says, one of us doesn't.
Sputnik, sorry, Russia.
Mace says that one of us isn't, like you said. There is one. A flight suit is obviously not there.
It's just a space suit. It's just a national suit.
And obviously, but this is the pragmatism again, because he sent Kepa out without a second's thought to the heat shield, and this time he wants Kepa to survive, because all that matters now is getting that bomb off, and the best chance they have of getting the bomb off is him. End of discussion.
Yeah, because it's not like
it's not short straws. There's none of that.
He's the only human that can actually arm the device, because Icarus can do it. But he's the failsafe, pretty much. You know what I mean? Because I think initially Icarus is supposed to do it, and then they get a 4-minute delay. They take back off in the return journey. The bomb drops into the sun or whatever. That's how it's supposed to happen. So I think the reason Kepa's there is, obviously maintain the device, make sure the payload. We have to keep saying payload. Make sure the payload.
Yeah, we're actually. We'd like to shout out to our sponsors today. Payloads.
But so this is where they decide that only one of them is going to make it, or are they? So not Kepa, what's his face? Mace comes up with a plan that we're going to put Kepa in the spacesuit, and we're going to wrap ourselves in themselves.
Insulation.
The insulation from.
But you can't jump over. This is Harvey's cowardness. This is the first time
it
comes to the surface, where he's literally and you could tell he's just shook. He's like, the ship needs a captain. He's going, no, the ship needs a payload specialist. The ship needs him.
Yeah.
And he's going, no, I command you take off that suit. I commanded, and then like one of my favorite lines, a little fucking weasel. He just has, I would like to assure you that once back on board, I will do everything in my power.
And Chris Evans is like, what are you going to do?
Everything in your power to what?
Yeah, remember Chris Evans like, what are you going to do? Shuttle back with more suits? And because so they decide that they're going to wrap themselves in the installation, and they're going to hook themselves around Kepa, and
it's 20 meters.
Yeah, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in space,
it was
without
minus 263 degrees. I don't even know if it's Fahrenheit or so. You know what? All I know is it literally.
It'd be cold.
Yeah, it'd be cold.
Yeah.
It'd be cold.
It'd be cold.
Yeah. And the last guy died of heat. Make up your mind, space.
And so they say that they're going to have to blow the airlock, decompress the Icarus 1, use the change
propulsion created by that.
Yeah, use the change in pressure to catapult them from 20 meters across to the Icarus to land inside the airlock and get their way inside if they can. So what happens is they realize that the system is down because of the malfunction, and Cliff Curtis's character Cyril is going to have to stay back and manually blow the airlock.
Well, Harvey was like, "Oh, you want me to do it? You want me to do it, don't you?" And I think they're so sick of him at this point. That, like Cyril just goes, "No, I'm doing it."
Harvey, I'm literally going to kill myself because I don't have to deal with you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, he's like putting the last finishing touches on making sure that Kepa has, that Kepa's ready to go because he is what they're trying to get back there.
Yeah. Everyone gets the bonus.
Yeah, exactly. And this is probably my favorite scene. I have to say, no, it is my favorite.
It's fucking terrifying.
It's just terrifying. It's just the most unimaginable because obviously the two passengers that he's going to take in Harvey and Mace, they have to wrap absolutely every part of their body in insulation. So they can't.
They do a good job.
They do an excellent job. Well, I mean, they had the right motivation. Yeah. You know what I mean? They had the right motivation, but they couldn't their eyes would freeze if they could even see it for a second. It's that cold. But
it's like don't open your eyes and take short breaths, small breaths.
They had to blind. It was. They had to go blind, quite literally.
Yeah.
So
like a bullet shot out of a gun.
Exactly. So there's explosive decompression. Literally rips the door off, and they fly across. And he's holding them both as best he can, but he loses not one of them, but two of them.
Yeah.
It's too much speed, too much pressure.
Harvey hits off debris, I think. And Chris Evans hits off.
He hits the wrong side of the door, and it's like he kind of swings around.
Yeah, he bounces off the side of it, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah. And Kepa reaches around and manages to grab him,
great save,
pull him in, and he said, "I lost Harvey."
Yeah.
And at this point, you look, and oh God, I know he was the sniveling little coward, and if somebody had to die in that scene,
what a horrible way to die, though.
But yeah, because he's floating out, and I think it's kind of like, obviously you were expecting to be there for 2.5 to 3 seconds max.
Yeah.
He's obviously maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. So he knows, obviously his body knows. So he just unwraps himself and just lets out, and it's just frozen blood coming out of him.
Yeah.
Oh God,
great
it's
scene.
horrendous.
Space is terrifying.
Space is terrifying.
Any people that go up there from NASA and the ISS, I don't know how they can float because their balls must be massive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As Negan used to say, to include the women, it's like, you must have some beach ball sized lady nuts on you right there. He says that to Sonequa Martin's character. I can't remember her name. I can't remember her name. You watched The Walking Dead. Anyway, back to the movie.
Go on, look it up. It's going to kill you.
So,
they get back on board. They've lost. Well, they're about to lose 2 because obviously the man who stayed behind is not long for this life. They get in. They give Mace everything they can in terms of heat. They obviously the re-atmosphere, whatever that word is, the chamber, the airlock, but
repressurize
it, yeah. And then we see our man float out into space and kind of,
Sasha,
funnily enough, hit a communication tower and break his arm off.
Oh yeah, because he's the comms officer.
So that really works.
Delicious irony.
And then the other guy's doing exactly what we knew he was going to do.
Yeah,
he's already got addicted to the sun and he is going to die. There's no no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah, because I just Sonequa Martin Green character in The Walking Dead was named Sasha. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Her brother's name is Tyrese. Didn't have to look that one up. But so literally, so now we see that Harvey has drifted off into space. He's dead. Chris Evans' character Mace, he's suffering from frostbite, and they were like wrapping his hand and stuff. And Cillian Murphy's just like sprawled out on the ground. And as you touched on, Cliff Curtis's character Cyril has now gone to the observation deck of the Icarus 1.
As you knew he would.
Yeah.
Like, if he's going to go, it's obviously the way he wants to go.
Yeah.
And he just goes nuclear. He doesn't put any filter on. He just looks directly at the sun.
Puts his sunglasses on. I love that.
Puts sunglasses on.
I love that. It's like, Cliff Curtis, how good are those sunglasses, dude? Where are you getting your sunglasses?
Honestly, I think he wanted to survive a half second longer.
Yeah, I think he probably opened his eyes though to take it all in, like he was blind. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And but they're saying to him like, Cyril, we've got these two guys. We're moving on. We won't be back. We're leaving now. We love you. And he doesn't react to it one way or the other, but he just sits down and dies. And his death is quite. This is the second noble sacrifice. And there's been one death by abstinence, by misadventure, or whatever way you want to put it.
Yeah,
and then you're kind of thinking, wow, I mean, what excellent pacing. We're down 3 people.
Yeah.
Like, we're down 3 people.
And every death was meaningful as well, like.
And every death was meaningful, yeah. And every death was different. The captain died literally on a spacewalk from the heat. The other guy froze in the shadow of space.
Yeah, it's like pretty much.
The other guy.
They're like all the most terrifying things that could happen to you in space. This is how this guy died. One guy got burnt to death in this like tsunami of sunlight or whatever. This other guy drifted off into space and froze to death. This other guy, you know what I mean, was like he sat in an observation deck onto the light of the sun, burnt him, turned him to ash, like, you know what I mean, like. So
not messing around.
Yeah, each day is meaningful and epic at the same time,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, we're They speak about what happened and they say, look, we were here, you were there. Yeah. And Trey is like catatonic.
Yeah.
So what happened? And they couldn't come up with an answer, but they knew one thing. And that was, at this point, it is a one-way mission. They haven't salvaged anything from Icarus 1. So they're going to need all of the air. So Trey has to go because at this point, he's not actually bringing anything to the table.
Yeah.
And what I liked about Kepa is said he voted to kill him because they were dancing around it, trying to make it a logical thing. But I like when you just kind of like, no, let's move away from that language and call it what it is.
Yeah.
We're going to kill him so that we can live a bit longer
and save humanity.
Yeah, that's what this is. And so then Mace goes down to do the deed, and you realise that Trey has already opened his own wrists.
Yeah.
Again, a completely different style of death, a completely different meaning of it.
Yeah. It's cool the way he was in that room where he's like simulating, looking at birds fluttering and flying around him.
Yeah, that was it. It was their kind of low-tech holodeck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and he obviously just went somewhere peaceful. And
good name for
to the best of his ability. Yeah, low-tech holodeck. Patent pending.
Cut this, Carol, cut this. Beep it out. People are like, what did they say? So like now they have enough air left because now Trey is dead, Kanada's gone, Cyril's gone, Harvey's gone, and all that's left is Cassie, Corzon, Kepa, and Mace. This is 4 of them left, so we think.
Or so we think, because when Cillian Murphy is down with the payload and having a look over everything.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Before we get into the final stretch, do you want to take a break or anything?
I do indeed. My bladder's full of urine.
Lovely. Cut that car. Cool. So we'll go to the break and we'll be back after the break. I'm your host, Vincent Green. He's Noel John Toohey. Noel.
I am. All right.
We're the Invasion Potty Snatchers. We'll see you after the break. All right, folks, we'll be back in a few minutes.
And now from a word for none of our sponsors.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Downloaded legally through downloading sites of legal nature. I'm just spilling all the beans tonight, aren't I?
Yeah. Anyway, back to how I'm scamming old people.
So Ponzi schemes.
Ponzi schemes. And welcome back. This is Invasion of the Potty Snatchers, Part 2. We're just back from the break. Again, I am your host, Noel John Toohey, and with me is my host. I forget his name, but it's probably Vincent Green.
Story, dude.
So, well, we kind of left off where the doom is inevitable. That we're running into the last minutes. How much more can go wrong? Spoiler alert! Everything. And I feel like this is the first time the stage has been set. I think at this stage, like I don't think they're going to. They don't really go for more. They don't really go for more kind of drawn out deaths. I think now the tempo finally hit and the crescendo is approaching. So I feel like everything's more close together. There's no more moments of calm at all.
Yeah.
Not even little lulls or conversations or stolen moments. It just happens from this point onwards.
Yeah, I think Rose Byrne says at one stage in the movie, it's like there's a big difference knowing that you might die, and there's a big difference knowing you're going to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or you knowing that you might not come back, and definitely not coming back, or something along those lines. And like, this is where they're kind of, everybody knows now we're screwed. We're not going home. It's a one-way mission.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
And not just that, you don't have any time to process that. You're running so low on air, and what you have to do is so important that these last moments you have are going to be spent up to your neck in work. Because like it kind of lends itself to that question: if it was your last day on Earth. I remember Homer Simpson famously pulling in his car and just crying on the side of the road, and it was just like, yeah, that seems about right. What would it act like it's your last day on Earth? But obviously you'd spend it with your family, or you tell someone that you love them, or you tell someone to fuck off or something, But you do something that's for you. They weren't even given that.
Yeah.
They were. It's just the dead ones, the people who died already, were technically luckier because these people are following very close behind, but they have so much pressure and pain to go through still.
Yeah, the anticipation of death is worse than death itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like now, like we see that they think there's just 4 of them left, and that they're going to have enough oxygen to at least make complete their mission. Drop the payload. A word from our sponsors.
So
they know now anyway that they can make the mission a success, at least, that they're not going to be able to come home, but at least they're going to save mankind. But like, this is when we see Cillian Murphy's character Kappa, and he's down in
that's right. It's where we left off exactly. He's making sure that the manual transmission for the bomb, for the payload, is ready to go, and the ship Icarus informs him that he's going to die, and he said, "I know, but we've accepted it." He goes, "No, you don't have enough oxygen in 16 hours. In 16 hours, complex tasks would be impossible. In 18 hours, basic tasks. You're just going to, obviously there's oxygen depletion before there's before there's suffocation and death."
Well, she says, the Icarus computer says that they have 16 hours of oxygen left, but it takes 19 hours to complete the mission.
Yes.
So they won't be able to complete the mission.
And he says, "No, we've run the math. We have 4 people, and we've enough oxygen for whatever, 19 and a half hours, whatever kind of skinny your teeth kind of time." And she said, "There's 5.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, no fucking way.
You're like, xenomorphs.
Xenomorph, yeah. At that point, if I was in Kappa's shoes, I'd be like...
This would be some movie as an alien movie, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Actually...
I'd love to see Danny Boyle do an alien movie.
If it was me now, because I like a little twist, I'm thinking Babadook. I'm just thinking random Babadook.
That little fucking kid in that movie is so annoying. I know he's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, I mean...
But he is.
Well, once you start rooting for the Babadook, it's a lot easier to watch.
Yeah. You're like, Babadook, Babadook, Babadook. But we have to do that as another episode for sure.
He asks who the extra person is, and yes, we do. He asks who the extra person is. The Icarus informs him that she doesn't know.
Yeah. Unknown entity.
Yeah, and where is he? Which is great, because obviously the ship can pinpoint you literally just by the fact that you are breathing the reserves of oxygen.
Yeah.
And he's in the observation deck, I believe, or somewhere around there.
No, he was, yeah.
And
doing press ups.
Doompress.
Naked.
And this is it's such a good scene.
That's Mark Strong.
But this is the thing. It wasn't. I think for me, a horror movie is based on how a movie makes you feel. You know that it doesn't have to be the trope of like Scream. You have a lunatic with a knife versus Freddy Krueger, a guy that can actually invade your dreams. You know, like versus a xenomorph, an alien in space, etc. It's definitely, for me, it has to be based on how you feel. And I think that's why thriller and sci-fi have so many overlaps with the horror genre. And this was the first scene for me that felt classic horror. He goes into the observation deck. It's too bright to quite make out what's going on or what's in there. And it just literally felt like, you know, coming face to face with the devil or coming face to face with Pinhead or something. It was literally scary.
Do you think that there was a need for Pinbacker to be the villain of the piece, or do you think the mission itself should have been the villain?
Well, actually, you know what? If you were going to give me a one or the other kind of conversation, because essentially he's Pinbacker, who is the person in the room, the captain of the Icarus One, who's become deranged over the years. I would say the mission, obviously the mission. Because the fact of the matter is that you just need to be here to press this button, and that task is all-consuming, no matter what happens, is an amazing storytelling device, especially when executed on such a huge scale. It's not like a conductor of a train and the brake line snaps. You know what I mean? It's huge. It's literally global. It's every human being that's alive and that will ever live. Absolutely. If it's one or the other, Pinbacker was not necessary. But the fact that the whole scale of the mission could make it go crazy, I think they decided, well, what would be the nuclear version of somebody going crazy on a mission like this? And they went, somebody who's been lost in deep space for years alone, who starts hearing voices, who's, you know, absolutely going crazy, who's suffered incredible physical and mental torturous pain. So I thought he was
self-inflicted.
But I thought it was an excellent. I don't know. He created a tension which I thought was really palpable and great, because now you had the enemy outside, at the unassailable enemy of the sun, and then you had the enemy inside, which was a literal lunatic who tells him that God has told him that this mission needs to fail and we all need to go to heaven.
Yeah, I think like Pinbacker got lost in the enormity of the mission, and he probably started. Remember, we were speaking about earlier on that all these questions and doomsday scenarios, you start running through your head, and I think he just got lost in everything. And like, I think he obviously, they allude to a little bit later on, or maybe just through his actions, that he's obviously the one that sabotaged the Icarus One. He messed with the mainframe and took out the coolant or whatever, caused the ship to overheat, and then probably, you know, maybe locked the rest of the crew in the observation deck and turned off the filter. You know, we've seen that, like, you know, and that, like, now he's on board the Icarus 2, he's going to try to do the same thing or whatever. Because, like, I like this, like, you know, to show you everything that's happened and then to show you the villain. Because you're like, oh shit, this is the same thing that's going to happen to Icarus 1, you know, or to Icarus 2, sorry, you know what I mean? That, like, it's not the kind of person that you can you can no longer be negotiated with. No, because he's just manic, you know what I mean? Like, he's
gone over the edge. He hasn't seen it. He's had the strength of his convictions for 7 years, and he's been alone with them for 7 years.
Yeah.
There's, like, I mean, at no point would you even think of, and he wears it on his skin. He's absolutely tortured it into himself. It's It's as big a part of him as anything else could be. And then, of course, when Killian gets close, he takes a slash at him because he couldn't see, because he had so much light at his back. It was just another way that this sun could hurt you in such a kind of obtuse way. And then you kind of have this weird slasher element to the film, which I wasn't expecting, but I did enjoy.
I like when he goes to Pinbacker, where he goes, he's like, Pinbacker, he's like, my God. He's like, your God. He's like, no, he's my God. You know, like, it's fucking really cool. And that's when he slashes at him with the electric scalpel, which I can't imagine would have any bonus because scalpel's supposed to be precision tool.
Yeah.
And the blades bouncing all around the place. So I'm not sure what the
it's not...
the benefit of having an electric scalpel would be. But...
And now I'll open the left ventricle. Yeah.
It's like when we were doing the Spider-Man episode, and you were like, "Okay, now we have to do intricate surgery," and you were like, "Take out the surgical chainsaw."
I remember that. You had a chainsaw for the Doc Ock scene because
that episode is now available on Spotify and all good streaming platforms, whatever. If you want to give it a listen, it's a bit of self-promotion there.
Yeah, shameless.
So like now we're kind of in the running. So now we see that there's a flesh and bone enemy on the Icarus 2. He was the one that caused the downfall of Icarus 1. Now he's going to set about doing it. He's lost in this weird relationship he's constructed with the sun or whatever, or God, or how he sees God, or in the sun or whatever. I don't fucking know. But like he's pretty much gone insane, and now he's attacked Kappa. Kappa's on the run, and Pinbacker now is loose on the Icarus 2. And everything's going crazy because now everyone's trying to find Pinbacker. Kappa's trying to escape him. And now I think the next character we see is Corazon, Michelle Yeoh in the Oxygen Garden, I think.
Yes, I think I'm trying to remember the scene right, but I think she finds a sprig, a literal tiny, like a 2-clover shamrock, is in just the smallest absolute. But the thing about plants is, in the right environments, you could make a little out of a lot. Make a lot of a little, excuse me. And
especially with someone with her
expertise. I mean, this woman is such a botanical horticologist, or whatever the word I'm looking for is, horticulture anyway.
Or botanist or something.
A botanist, that she's literally in a deep space mission to save humanity. So if there was a single person in the world that you'd want that in the hands of, it would have been her. So it was just, and you know what, it's just great storytelling when you break it down and analyze it, because that was a flash of hope inside
a bit of life amongst a lot of death, like,
because then that made me think, like, what if, like, what, obviously I when I think about it now, even I was like, wait, it had 16 hours of oxygen, this tiny little plant couldn't, but I don't know, like, it's based in the near future. Who knows what they could have done, because of course she's attacked.
Yeah, I think like a lot of it too, though, is symbolism. That it's a little bit of life left. Like everything else is dead, and it's just that little bit of life, and she's nurturing it like a little baby, like in her hands. And then Pinbacker comes in with his electrical scalpel, gives her a good old stab in the backy.
Yeah,
like whatcha?
And that's kind of it. She's dead.
That scene's really cool though, because she kind of dies with a hole in the plant.
That's right, yeah.
Really
that's
cool.
it. There was just so much symbolism.
The visuals in this movie were amazing.
Oh my God!
Like amazing from start to finish. But we can go into more depth with that when we kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, I'd like that. But I sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But
no, you're cool.
She was the first person. Now that I'm thinking about it, she was the first murder. We have like 5 or so people that we have a suicide. We have death by misadventure. We have death by misadventure, and then we have a noble sacrifice, followed by a noble sacrifice, and then followed by a murder. And there's been so much death and tragedy, but it was all the mission. It was the physics. It was the just things going wrong, miscalculations. Nobody was actually trying to kill anybody up until this point.
There's so many ways to die in space, you don't even think of murder.
Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing I'm just thinking now. Like, this was the first time that somebody heinously did something to somebody else. Yeah, so many people had died heinously. They were. I know they were going to kill Trey, but they didn't, because Trey killed himself, because even he agreed with the idea. Even he agreed that he needed to die at the sheer scope of the mission. So this was the first time somebody was actually murdered.
I think he was just so racked with guilt as well, though. He was always going
exactly.
To, you know what I mean? Like, I think he was always going to kill himself.
Yeah, if his mental state made him redundant, then he was. I mean, it's an expression, isn't it? You're just taking up oxygen, and it's kind of very, very literal when
to use a Nazi term, a useless breeder.
Useless breeder, yeah.
Yeah, or even a useless feeder or eater or something.
Because I even remember Maze in that scene saying, "What is he? Oh my God, what's he done?" Maze says he's taken responsibility. You know what I mean? Like almost as a tip of the cap to him.
Yeah, because he understood, like Trey understood, like, you know, that his life was no longer important to the mission. You know what I mean? That he had to go for the rest of them to have any hope of reaching the sun and, you know, releasing the payload.
Payload.
And, so now we see, like, as I said, the Flesh and Bone villain. Pinbaker's loose on the Icarus 2. Keppa's on the run. He's like slashed. I think now is Cassie's also on the run, I think. And
she's on the run from him. But this is the thing, you have to say, Trey made a miscalculation, and you can see just what it led to. And now you have somebody on the ship who obviously knows the ship inside out, because essentially he's in the sister ship of the ship he spent 7 years in. And he just wants to tear the whole thing apart. He doesn't want to accidentally put the heat shield 1.1 degrees off. No, he's trying to tear the whole thing apart.
Yeah, and he does. He goes and he sabotages the Icarus 2 in the same way he did the Icarus 1.
Yeah.
By lifting the mainframe up out of the coolant system or whatever the fuck.
Overheating it almost instantly.
Yeah, and
messing with the power somehow. Because this is when Maze asks, like, what the fuck is going on? Is when, like, even the lights and shit start to go out. I like the fact that he just says, look, it's Pinbacker. He asks Keppa what's going on. Keppa says over the comms, it's Pinbacker. He's gone crazy. He's on the ship. He doesn't question it.
Yeah.
It's just too late in the game. It's too late in the game for explanations. He just literally reacts, and they're all just on point. And at this point, nobody really ends up teaming up again. In any really big significant way, it becomes just trying to survive.
Yeah.
This lunatic long enough to die after the mission, which is just great storytelling. I mean,
it's a lose-lose situation.
Oh, it's a lose-lose, but one version of it. You know what I mean? Like, to put down in the basic terms, it's like watching whatever your preferred sport is, but it's like watching your team lose with heart.
Yeah.
And it's like watching them lose by capitulation. And they're both. The end result is the same, but there's one that's so much better, and this is that on a literal world-ending scale.
Yeah, because even when they win, they lose personally themselves. Really, you know that. But so like Pinbacker is after sabotaging the mainframe. Chris Evans' character Mace is gone down to the mainframe. He's going to try and lower it back into the coolant system or whatever the fuck. And Cillian Murphy's character Kappa is stuck in the airlock at this stage, and I'm a little bit unsure where Cassie is. I know she shows up again later on.
She kind of hides herself somewhere, like in some sort of closet or something. Oh, she goes into the holodecky kind of thing where Trey is, and she hides in the corner there.
Because, she does. Good call. And so now we see like 3 different stories play out kind of simultaneously. What happens with Cassie? What happens with Mace? And what happens with Kappa? So Mace is now pretty much decided now that he's going to have to sacrifice himself, because obviously the coolant is minus whatever, and it's, you know, fatal to keep dipping yourself in there or whatever. So he has to go down into the coolant system and try lower the mainframe back down so he can make the ship operational again.
Obviously, your man's messed it up to some degree that he has to do it manually. He has to get into the coolant. The coolant, which kind of burnt his hand earlier in the film. Not that, like, you know, in a kind of almost like a scald, except obviously in the lower temperatures. As in, he took his hand out and it was sore, but he's going to be okay. But obviously, immersing your body in it for an extended period of time, and especially immersing your body in it for an extended period of time while trying to do something functional.
Yeah. And he has to do it on multiple occasions.
He has to do it on multiple occasions. And then in between, when he gets out to get a breath to just survive a little longer, he's given instructions to Keppa, telling him, like, he needs to do this, this, and this to get that bloody bomb where it needs to be. And
the
payload. And he it just shows himself, like, at the end of it, he was definitely the most badass character of the whole film.
Oh, Mace.
Yeah.
100%, yeah, definitely. He saves the mission like 5 times.
Literally.
Yeah. And so Mace is battling with the coolant in the mainframe. Keppa is stuck in the airlock. And we see Cassie is down, as you said, with Trey's body in the kind of holodeck.
Yeah.
And she uses Trey's kind of silhouette or shadow to trick Pinbacker, who's after finding her there, to attack Trey's body, and then she like stabs Pinbacker a few times or something, and then we see
the lights come on in the holodeck, and Pinbacker confuses Trey's body up against the glass for Cassie or whoever it is he's trying to kill. So he ends up attacking Trey, but Trey's dead. He doesn't realize it. He just thinks it's a person. So when he's wrapped his hands around Trey, that gives her an opening to use. It seems to be a little device she got out of the helmet of one of the spacesuits, just something sharp basically. And she manages to damage Pinbacker, but he's kind of a little bit beyond pain per se. Like, it'll slow him down, but anything short of fatal isn't going to stop him. Yeah. You know, if you cut one of his legs off, he'd torch the wound, he'd cauterize himself, and he'd just crawl after you. You know,
he's just going to the observation deck and use the sun to cauterize his wound for him.
But that's it. Like, that's how far gone this guy is. But oh god, it's just such an excellent film.
I love the way as well, like when Pinbacker's on the screen, like the camera's all distorted and shit, and we can't really see him, and it makes him look nearly more monstrous or otherworldly or something.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? It's really, really.
But that's what I mean. It had Hellraiser kind of elements to it for me.
Yeah,
like a literal tortured soul.
Come to daddy.
Come to daddy.
Come to daddy. But so as you were saying, like, she uses Trey's dead body to trick Pinbacker, and she attacks him and stabs him a few times or some shit and runs away. And now it switches to Mace. He's down with the mainframe, the coolant, and he's on the intercom to Keppa or something.
He's telling them how to. Obviously, the mainframe is fried, which means that Icarus isn't going to be able to launch the
payload.
Yeah, launch the payload. And I don't know why I'm getting stuck on that word, because obviously the word is payload. I mean,
they say it a lot in the movie.
The name of this
scene, they said like 4 or 5 times in a row.
I think this episode needs to be called Payload, Payload, Payload. Just that. No clever puns, no nothing. Just lots of payload.
There might be a clever pun coming out of that. But what's it called? Like, so now Keppa is the only way for the payload to be launched into the sun. So, because the manual override or whatever the manual controls is now the last resort, and he has to find some way of getting himself out of the airlock and launch himself on getting himself onto the payload and separating the payload from Icarus 2. And pretty much, guiding it or
getting back,
activating
it and getting back to manually activate it. So
he has to get onto the payload before it separates, or no, it's after separating from Icarus 2, and he has to get onto it.
Arm it. That's the word.
Yeah.
And then he needs to get back to, which he does. Like he literally needs to push himself off a bomb. Just like the only thing separating him from the sun was the shade of the heat bomb. Because obviously they had was massive deflectors on the payload, because it needed to literally survive to get into the heart of the star, which obviously is a massive ask. But he does it, and at this, honest to God, I remember feeling a little bit numb. But this is a compliment to the film, and it's not going to sound like one. But I remember just feeling a little bit numb to the suspense here, because this film had just been battering me. With suspense.
It's an assault on the senses.
Oh, my, exactly. It's an assault on the senses. It's an excellent way of putting it. And because we had Kaneda, the captain, die on a spacewalk, and we've had when they tried to make the jump across the umbilicus or whatever they would call it, the lock in between the two ships, we lost another character there, and another. It's just been, and now we have a killer on the ship. And it was such to use your words, an assault on the senses that I remember watching the scene going, cool, yeah, good for you, you made it. But I remember during that scene, me personally, just today, I remember not feeling the tension, but it's not a fault of the film. It's a fault to me as a human being, just burnt out,
I love that scene though, because like literally every inch that Cillian Murphy makes or does or whatever or walks just seems so earned and so arduous. Like everything just seems so heavy and just like, you know what I mean? It's like when as soon as he he explodes the airlock, decompresses it, because he's going to do the same thing, kind of like what they did when the Icarus 1 and Icarus 2 were blown apart. He's going to try to use the propulsion to get him onto the payload. So you know what I mean? Like, and this scene, I love this when he ties himself, doesn't he tie himself onto something, and he blows the airlock, and then Michelle Yeoh's character Corazon.
Oh, that was something else, because it was at this point like everything in the film has so much meaning and the cinematography is so excellent. But at this point, everything is just so chaotic that a kind of a lovely character, and a character you've come to care for in the last hour and a half, it's just like very kind of ambiguously just tossed out the ship, because that's it. It's great about how unforgiving space is. She was just sucked out of the ship, because why wouldn't she be? Because that's what would happen. And there's just that scene, her lifeless body just flies by, and it's just so unnecessary and necessary, I think, at the same time. Because at this stage it's just like, okay, she's gone, okay, he's dead, he's going to die, she might be alive, I don't know. And but like, it doesn't matter, you yourself have got about 30 minutes, 20 minutes to live. So now it's just like, get on with it. You have to get on with it. You do not even get to acknowledge that somebody that you've over the last year or two become extremely close with, dare I say, love, like a true friend, has just literally just been sucked out to space.
Got jettisoned into space, like
nothing to say about it. There is no dialogue, because who's he going to talk to, and B, what is there to say at this point?
And like, it's pretty much kept us hanging on as everything's getting like, shot out into space. And Corazon, as we were talking about, she dies, or she's dead here. She floats out into space, and at the same time Mace is down with the mainframe still, and he's like going back in one more time to get the mainframe to go back down to the coolant, because he's trying to get Icarus to come back online. And like, we see down, he gets the mainframe to come back down, and as he's climbing out, he gets stuck and gets stuck in his leg or something, and Chris Evans dies here. Mace dies, he like freezes to death in the coolant. And all his
last words, even just to emphasize the badassness, as if it needed to be, was just do it. As in like, at that point, if the mainframe's cool enough to run, just do it. I'm dead, so I'm going to die now and not 3 minutes from now. Do it. It's just
so we're pretty much down to the last man, the man left with his god, to use Pinbacker's words, and that's Cillian Murphy, or so we think. He's the last survivor, and we see him inside the neutron bomb or whatever, the payload, and he's manually arming it or whatever, and we see all these like bright lights, or I don't know what to call them. It's kind of out of my field, physicists. Like,
I only lasted 2 years in astrophysics, and I'm embarrassed to admit it.
No, I'm a goddamn podcaster, not a physicist.
I'm barely that.
And but like so the bomb's starting to activate, and then we see I think Rose Byrne's character Cassie's on the ground, and she's like, I think she's stabbed or something. She seems to be like wounded.
Actually, for me, she's definitely wounded, but she's obviously in such a state of shock where she's clearly still in danger, but like, in danger from who and what? Like, at that stage, it's at that stage, not a word. Stage,
you're is now.
It's that stage you're in danger in so many levels. It's already over. It must be somewhat similar. I have a picture in my head that I remember staring at for a few minutes one time, and it was an SS officer in World War II being brought out to be executed by firing squad, and it was just a picture taken of him when he's tied to the stake, and there's just something in his eyes I found really, really haunting that for some reason jumped into my head, and it was just that, like, what else is there to say? This, like, what do you want?
Totally defeated.
Well, you're totally, like, it's beyond, it's, there's no fairy tale happening here. Not that he deserved it, fuck him. But like, at the same time, just that look in the eyes. And I think Rose Byrne does an excellent where you don't know, like, is she injured? Is she catatonic? Or is it a logical thing?
Yeah, you're so far. Everything is.
You're so far beyond the pale here. Where even
I'd love to know how she got on the payload, though.
Oh, I actually just think running for her life and not worrying too much about where she ended up, as long as she didn't end up with
Pinbacker, and so she's like on this giant cube thing or something that seems to be the center of the payload, and she's like hurt or whatever, traumatized, and Eddie Murphy goes over to her, and like he's inspecting her or whatever, see if she's still alive, and Pinbacker comes up and like attacks him, and he's all burnt naked glory, and he's like I don't understand. Is he like extra strong or something?
Apparently there was kind of like Marvel Comics logic, you know, like
What the
well
fuck,
most of us get like melanoma, and he.
What's melanoma, Noel?
It's those little cancerous kind of growths.
No, it's just a fancy word meaning sexified.
But
Family Guy.
I honestly don't know. I wonder about like because I didn't even know how the gravity worked on the ship. They obviously had invented some sort of anti-gravity technology, artificial gravity technology.
I think this is a couple of 100 years in the future or something. Like.
I actually don't even know if it's that far. I think it's far. You know, like I think it's that. I think that's the best place for sci-fi from where we're speaking right now. Is
keep
just
it vague.
Yeah, keep it vague, but also clearly not like 500 years where we've like conquered like faster than the light speed of light traveling, and you know we can teleport, all that kind of jazz. It's still really, really dangerous and arduous. But
it's probably the best way to describe the advanced technologies still within the realm of our understanding.
Oh, that's an excellent way. Ooh, pat on the back for you.
I think that's the best way to look at it, though. Like, so it's like everything's more advanced of the things that we already know. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, yeah. That's exactly it. Though, to be fair, that was a really good way of putting it.
So Pinbacker holds up Kappa over the edge of this fucking big cube thing, or whatever.
Because he's
super strong. Like all of a sudden, like this is the guy who's been malnourished for 7 years. Actually, maybe not. Maybe he killed him early, and he's been eating like a king. Like,
you know what I mean? Think of me and my. I have a
just doing naked press ups in the observation deck every day.
I have a nephew Noah, and he's a lovely little man, but he's incredible athlete. He's real strong. He's into basketball and football and all that jazz. So I used to have a trick just to annoy my little sister, his mother. So I'd grab him by the throat. I wouldn't put my hands around his throat. He'd hold my arm, and I'd pick him up so that my mother and his mother would like go like, no, you're like, you know, absolutely freak the fuck out. So that was like our little party trick. That's because he weighs like 10 kilos or something. You know, like he's just like but you need to do. He's a lean, small.
I just
kid.
think Pinbacker's off his tits on vitamin D.
You can't pick up an 85 kilo man. You can't.
You know what I mean? Who picks up a Peaky Blinder by one hand? You know what I mean? So like this part here, I thought was a bit ridiculous. Like because it kind of looks like Cassie Rose Byrne. It tackles Cillian Murphy instead of Pinbacker. Like she miss him or something?
It's like she jumps on his arm, like the
why? He's like, oh, you're hanging my buddy over the edge. I think I'll just join him.
Oh no, they do fall, but apparently eventually where they're falling becomes the flat ground.
So do you think she understood that?
I think so. Well, at some degree she must have, but I didn't, and I don't.
Yeah, because when I was watching it, I totally forgot about that part. I was like, why is she attacking Cillian Murphy?
Exactly, I've forgotten as well.
Yeah, it's like, is this a twist I missed or something? Like, you know what I mean? So Cassie saves Cillian Murphy, I guess, and Pinbacker, you know, falls to his death or something because the payload is turning. And does she die here? I think she dies here as well. Because Cillian Murphy seems to be the only one left running into the climax.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was the last image I have in my head of Pinbacker was him, Cillian Murphy going from falling to standing up. So like the side of the cliff becomes the top of the cliff, but he's looking up at Pinbacker, and Pinbacker is also standing up, looking down at him. So I guess like I don't know if it's got something to do with the gravitational force of the sun creating a like I'm too stupid to know. But I genuinely don't know. like I don't remember. There was no kill shot in Pinbacker.
I thought he slid down off the cube after did Rose Byrne not tackle Kappa, Cillian Murphy, and rescue him, and then they slide along the.
Oh, and then he falls upside. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I think that is what
it rotates, and the cliff becomes the flat ground.
Yeah, exactly, because it's literally like. At an angle, about to literally fall into the heart of the sun.
Some background lights coming through now.
Is that me? Yeah.
Yeah.
One sec. You know what? I probably have something open. I probably have something open that's making noise.
Could have been so much worse.
Close all my porn.
Yeah, it's gone now, whatever it was.
Alright, cool. It's gone, it's gone. But yeah, so all that's left now is to literally God, like I mean, they did such a great job of letting you know that at this point there is only one thing left to do and one person left to do it. One stop shop. And but there's so much of this film, and I don't think, like, you know, when we were too busy using the word payload, I think we could have thrown in a few beautifuls. There is so many beautiful visuals in this film, and this kind of very final one, kind of like, the film is so bereft of hope, and even in Cillian Murphy kind of lives to see the fact that his bomb is activated. Like, there was only an X amount of chance of it activating, and I know it was definitely not a certainty. But he actually gets to see that he understands the process. So he gets to see kind of in the heart of the star.
Yeah.
He gets to see it and hold his hand up to it. And it almost makes you think, like, you know, obviously everyone's mortal. And there's many who would give their life to have that moment. Because it's probably worth 100 years of other moments, you know. It was just something so beautiful and so epic at such an incomprehensible scale that in a way maybe he was lucky. And I know that's quite a dark thing to say, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't looking at that going, you know, I'd like to leave my family. Yeah, I wasn't looking at that going, I'd like to never see my loved ones again or something like that. Of course. But another part was thinking, like, wow, it's like, I mean, talk about a life well lived. He's looking at something that nobody will ever possibly see ever again, and he saved everyone. And that's all he wanted to do. He was a good guy, like, you know what I mean. He was there for a reason.
Call back. He was a good man.
He was a good man. Yeah,
he's a good man.
Oh no, he went up to the star. Went up to the star. Turned on the star. He was a good man.
Do you think he was like, he gets to the sun and he's like, "You will reignite by order of the Peaky Blinders."
It probably would have worked.
And like, so yeah, as you said, like, the kind of space and time, or Sam Neill says space time, they kind of, like, you know, this weird, like, you know, everything slows down for a moment and the sun becomes like tangible. He's able to put his hand out and touch it and shit before, you know, obviously they show an outward shot, you know, and it's like he's engulfed obviously in the sun. And then, you know, to wrap it up, they go back to Earth. There's a callback here where his last message back to Earth was, he said that, you know, it'll take us years, whatever, to be able to talk to you again. So the only way you can tell if we survive is if you go out one day and it's like an extremely beautiful day out, and then you know that we made it.
I'll say if it gets brighter, because it takes 8 minutes for obviously the light of the sun to hit the Earth, covered in 93 million miles, and it's her and her sons are playing. It's his sister and her sons are playing in the snow, because what the fuck else would you be doing? And just, it is very beautiful. It just does, just exactly as you said. Not very abstract really, but it didn't need to be. It just literally becomes bright, and she realizes, like, at that point you might think maybe he's met it and he's on his way back or something, but all you know is he's completed his mission.
Yeah, and the show as well that it's Sydney, because you can see a Sydney Opera House in the background. That kind of gives you a good idea of how bad the climate has gotten around the world.
Yeah,
how bad this winter is, that a warm climate country like Australia is, you know, covered in snow.
Engulfed, yeah. Places like Siberia could have been wiped off the map. Like, it could have been. Yeah. Obviously, the toll on the Earth would have been. It's not like they saved everybody, because obviously they wouldn't have been on their way there if there was so much that wasn't lost already.
And big part of this movie, like, because we kind of touched on it earlier, was the visuals. And like, what did you make of, like? I think the enormity of the mission, like the way the design of the spacecraft, the way they used the score, and the way they used, like, the way everything was kind of put together was just like it's like a masterpiece of movie making. Like, he builds tension, and then he just, like, the release, and the way they used, like, you know, the sun is just like fucking obviously insane. It's like this, like, you know, ever looming force that, you know, they're all going, you know, they're barreling towards millions of miles or 1,000 miles an hour, and they're all going to die, you know what I mean? Like,
I think they were traveling about 26,000 miles an hour, because I think they had this jokey picture of them at the start, and it was like speed limit 26,000 miles an hour, kilometers an hour.
29,000.
29,000 kilometers an hour. Yeah. But yeah, it all, like, the thing is that the end of the film makes you think, was that good? Like, the sheer enormity of it, was that a good mission or a bad mission? Because obviously for those who've experienced it, bar it succeeding, it could not have gone more wrong. Everything. So much suffering and pain and sacrifice and fear and insanity. But on the macro, all, like, they were expendable and they did it. It doesn't matter, like, it just doesn't matter. So that was again, it's just one of those I don't know, it's like philosophical questions you see posed, you know, like the tram, it's going to hit one person or it's going to hit 5 people. You let it hit the one person because that saves more, and sometimes it's literally that simple. Uncomfortable but simple. And it drawed back to when they were voting on killing Trey to save oxygen. It made me think of it as well, because they had it on the small scale. And Cassie says, I understand the logic of your argument, and I know you need my vote, but you just can't have it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very powerful moment as well, because that she gets it, and she knows she can't stop it or argue against it, but you can't have it. And I thought that was, you know, it's just I don't know, the film posed questions, but it didn't kind of go up its own arse with it. It just did, just the storyline begged the questions instead of the characters kind of in an overt way kind of asking the questions. And I don't know, at the end of it, I just thought it was masterful. I really did. Maybe they didn't need Pinbacker, you know, God knows everything was going to shit already, but he did lend, maybe just like full-blown insanity was one of the human elements that they really wanted to introduce to the story, and he had that in spades, like, you know.
And I think as well, when you introduce Pinbacker, you can kind of accelerate the doomsday scenario.
Yes.
Because you have someone actively sabotaging the ship, you know what I mean? Instead of things going wrong gradually. Because that's what's kind of what happened before he got involved. Because, like, I know the whole thing with Trey, like, went wrong and stuff in the heat shields. But, like, apart from that, the only thing that went wrong that wasn't Pinbacker, like, that was the only thing that went wrong that wasn't Pinbacker's fault, really. You know what I mean? Like, because he blew the airlock. He obviously sabotaged Icarus 1. He sabotaged Icarus 2 by taking the mainframe out of coolant. You know, he kills Michelle Yeoh's character. You know, he attacks Corazon, and he kills her character, and he kills, like, pretty much Chris Evans by proxy by taking the mainframe out and sabotaging to the degree that he had to, you know, get in the coolant and shit. So, like, I think pretty much everything that went wrong, apart from the heat shields, is actually Pinbacker's fault. I think that's the main reason that they actually added that character, you know, just to accelerate things, because you need to add, you know, the tick and time clock that will they or not, because you can't just say, like, I know, like, in the sense that the sun is a good enough villain, or the mission, the arduousness of the mission is a good enough villain, but I think the whole reason for Pinbacker is just like, you need to put a ticking clock that maybe they won't make it because someone's actively trying to stop them, you know what I mean? Like, instead of maybe they won't make it because the mission's really hard.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember just thinking all the way through it that it always juxtaposed for me of, you know, we were talking about, you see something like Deep Impact and an entire city gets wiped out with a comet, and it's just like, whoa. And then you watch a film where somebody you just really... Do you remember, what was the Liam Neeson film where he sits down with the guy who slowly bleeds to death in one of those survival films, and he talks to him during the course of his death? And,
the Grey.
The Grey. And, like, that guy's death.
Great movie, directed by Joe Carnahan.
That death was brutal. That death was just a death. So there is just a kind of, like, the scope you're looking at it from.
It's kind of like when we talked about before, it's like in Armageddon, you mentioned when Paris gets wiped out, and then I was talking about how that doesn't hit you as hard as when Bruce Willis dies at the end of the movie.
No, of course it doesn't.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just one of those weird disconnects you have with big, like, mass, like, disaster in a movie or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Because you're looking at the special effects more than the after effects.
I think at the end of Armageddon, it turned out that Bruce Willis was dead all along.
Ooh, what a twist. And, so would you? Well, we always kind of end on this one, but would you recommend this movie?
God, I think about it. Like, if somebody was kind enough to stay with us for this long, I don't think I'm going to insult their intelligence enough by answering the question. I think we have both basically slobbered over this movie.
Yeah,
it was just a cool movie, man. And you know, it was a storytelling movie. I think we have gone a little bit fanfare in the last 10 years. And not always bad. I mean, Marvel has made some absolutely incredible movies, and you know, Disney and etc. and so forth. But I just felt like that was storytelling, like it was pure or something. I don't know. I felt like it was probably a film file, a movie file's film. It was a film that you could sink your teeth into, that you could talk about the abstract, that had lended itself to different conversations. So I just thought it was a film lover's film. So yeah.
It was kind of in the mold of like not Apocalypse Now, 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like we already said about Event Horizon, it's kind of like Space Odyssey meets Event Horizon in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Where you know, ask big questions and shit like that.
And I'd like to stand over it. If somebody said I considered a film a horror, I'd say yeah. But obviously there's the technicality that it's just not, because it wasn't written to be. So therefore it's not, I guess, if you want to get down to the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, but we do sci-fi here as well on Potty Snatchers.
Oh no, we do. But I'm just saying that. But like that's what horror, I think, is kind of the point I'm trying to make. It's not always the thing, and there's this grotesque creature erupting, people get like disemboweled and stuff. It's or a slasher, you know, an unkillable monster in a forest. It's just a feeling in your gut, you know, from the safety of your home.
Yeah, there's nothing scarier than space.
No.
There's not. Even when you try and contemplate what it'd be like to be up in the ISS or something like that, those people are insane. It's hard to contemplate what it'd be like to be on a ship for an extended period of time and can't go outside. You're breathing recycled air. You can only see the same people over and over again. You never have natural light. It's impossible to comprehend unless you experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this movie kind of it conveys that to the nth degree.
Oh my God, it does.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing about it, is it's just like it gives you a real sense of claustrophobia. It gives you a real sense of the enormity of the situation. It gives you the sense of how it affects people's psyches and all this kind of thing, and the way it affected different people rose to occasions. Some people, you know, folded. Some people went insane. You know, whatever. Some people got lost in it, like Cyril, and kind of pinned back or went like he was like Cyril to the nth degree, like whatever. He was like Cyril turned up to 11. You know?
Can I touch upon something that occurred to me earlier and I didn't touch upon, and that is that who is putting the therapists on these ships? Look at the one guy who came off the Icarus one. Not particularly well catered to in the mental department. And and Cyril was the guy who was just like,
you can't prepare anyone for something that's never been done before.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I'd be like, okay, but like we need to make sure that like we need the captain to be calm under pressure. But not just that, we need somebody who's calm under pressure, that when somebody's not calm under pressure, they can bring them to a place of calm under pressure, even when they themselves are under said pressure. And they were bad. They didn't do it well with Cyril, and they did it fucking terribly with Icarus 1.
Yeah, I think if Kaneda's on Icarus 1, this movie doesn't happen. You know, put Kaneda, like who picked Pinbacker over Kaneda?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I just picture him in his interview, and he's kind of going, "And you're going to save the earth." He goes, "Yes, if God wills it."
Yeah, it's like,
well, yeah, like I mean, but yeah, you know, God, but like, you know, God also helps themselves, and he goes, "No, disagree."
It's like hard disagree.
Yeah, hard disagree. He's going, yeah, you're going to do everything in your power. You know, everything in your power. He goes, well, if those are the orders, those are the orders. I don't take orders from you. I think the guy was probably so uncomfortable with the conversation with Pinbacker that he just let him go on the mission.
Yeah, it's just like I don't want to follow up.
I don't want to follow up conversation. I'll leave the fate of humanity in your hands if it means.
Yeah, stamps approved.
I'd love it. Like the picture on his file is him self-flagellating, you know, like that. With their own back. Yeah. Well, Event Horizon, there was two correlations. There was the religious captain of the first ship, the Event Horizon itself, and the captain who speaks Latin. fluent Latin who at first he's like, he says something like, Godspeed and good luck to everybody kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a nice message. But the second one is like, save yourselves, and he's holding his own eyes. And this
Latin's the creepiest language.
Yeah, Latin is the creepiest language. There's literally nothing, no argument there.
Yeah.
That's just the same of the fact. And then the second captain does the same thing. They did. And also, by the way, both ships were lost for 7 years.
Yeah, there is a lot of parallels. Like Alex Garland tells like the similar story as Event Horizon, because like as you said earlier, the reason we're doing the Sunshine podcast is because we looked at Event Horizon, we mentioned similarities.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what led us this road.
Also,
like,
the road taken is that I think without Event Horizon, like, don't get me wrong, I think without 2001: A Space Odyssey, we don't have any sort of dark sci-fi. We have Star Trek, we have Star Wars, but we don't have any dark sci-fi. So Event Horizon wasn't the first step, and then but I don't think you have a Sunshine without Event Horizon. I think it took notes. Not at all copyright.
100%. Alex Garland 100% has seen Event Horizon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
100%.
It was. Well, at the same time, it's so what? Like, I mean, there's imitation, and there's inspiration. And inspiration.
This is emulation, not imitation, isn't it? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it made it work in a more modern setting, obviously. And looking at it now, 13 or 14 years later, almost on the money. 14 years later. That it definitely holds up. Like, they had obviously we'd entered into a new era of like touch tech and kind of like holograms, visual perspectives on machines are quite similar, and this film felt, I don't know, it felt fresh. Like if I didn't know who the actors were and seeing them all so baby faced, you could have told me that this film came out last summer in the right scenario. You could have.
It's ageless. The special effects and the way it's like the visuals we touched on a little bit earlier. Well, it's ageless. Like, I looked at this and was like, "Jesus, this movie looks perfect." You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Still to this day, like, and it's like, as you said, it's like 14 years later.
Yeah.
And this movie does look like it just came out. Last summer. Like, it's really, really impressive. Like, but like, I think good science fiction movies are can age very, very well if they're done right. Like Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Like Event Horizon, even though the special effects are a little bit iffy in that, but like the story itself, still, it's still enjoyable. But like, this whole movie is fucking awesome, pretty much. It's like we fanboyed a lot over this movie because
we did.
It's the right way to do sci-fi without a monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to do sci-fi without a monster, to make it enthralling.
Who do you think
or whatever?
Who do you think wins in a fight between Jason Voorhees and the endless void of space?
Yeah, well, Jason Voorhees, because have you ever seen Jason X?
I have, yeah.
This fucking guy just in that Jason X.
He was on his ship in Jason X, to be fair, like,
Yeah. He gets rebuilt.
In fact, he tag teams with space. There's nobody to get away with him because he'd end up in space.
He tag teams with space. That should have been the tagline of that movie. Jason X with Jason Voorhees tags team with space.
Yeah. Special guest space.
For he's a jolly good fellow.
That film had one of the best kills in horror history, so it'll always get a passing grade from me.
Yeah, we definitely have to go through all those movies sometime because I fucking love those movies.
Yeah,
you can belt through them easily. They're all like 90 minutes long. But like, before we get the fuck out of here, do you have anything else to say on Sunshine? And we went through the visuals, we touched on the score, went through the story, we went through we talked about Alex Garland's inspirations, Danny Boyle's executions. Like, literally, we kind of went through this movie with a fine-tooth comb. So, Noli, before we get the fuck out of here, what else do you want to say about Sunshine? And what else do you want to tell folks about this movie?
Well, I want to say that this film, I think, is forget what you saw on the screen. I think this film is where a composer, a producer, a writer, and a director sat down at a table, and they were the right four people to sit down at the table.
Yeah.
They just were. So this was set up beautifully to be executed by good actors, and it was. But like right there before I think before anybody got into a studio, I think this was destined to be a good film.
Yeah, I think Danny Boyle had previously worked with Alex Garland on 28 Days Later.
Is that where he was? See, I seen Alex Garland, and you're better at me at that. You've a head for directors.
He wrote and directed Ex Machina, and I'm pretty sure he directed Dread, starring Karl Urban. And he did do Debs with Nick Offerman. Offer. Nick Offerman. Fucking love that dude. Don't know why I keep getting his name wrong. So like I think they had. I'm pretty sure Danny Boyle had the idea. Maybe this movie and him and Alex Garland. Maybe that's why it was so seamless. That maybe they kind of came up with this idea together, and Alex Garland was the one to put off the execution. Danny Boyle was to bring it to fruition or whatever. Maybe that's why you had this flawlessness to it or whatever, or seamlessness to it, because I think maybe the director, the writer, maybe were in the from stage one. Maybe they kind of brought this to life together, maybe bit by bit or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That's why it was very easy to convey Alex Garland's story, maybe Danny Boyle's ideas into the story or whatever.
Yeah, I just think I think sometimes a film is either going to be good or bad before anyone says action or payload.
Yeah, because a meal can it's like as soon as you start a meal, if you cook it with the wrong ingredients, it's going to taste like shit. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the harken back to Spider-Man 3. That movie was probably long doomed before camera started rolling.
Oh, it was. I've said it. No, it was. It was doomed from the get-go. It doesn't matter who you put in the director's chair. It was just doomed. And this film was the opposite. It was just artists allowed to make art, and I was really, really, really happy with it. But I'd like to say before we sign off that I've decided coming up on the next episode of Potty Snatchers, I'm going to take a delve into a more modern, but not super modern, 10 years old, suspense kind of slasher horror film, You're Next. And I'm the virgin here because Vinny's seen it and my fiance has seen it. So I'm looking forward to doing a deep dive on that with my co-host Vincent on the next installment of Invasion of the Potty Snatchers.
Yeah, that's a cool slasher movie directed by Adam Wingard.
Obviously, everybody knows that.
So Noel, we get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Well, cool. Sign us off, Noel.
All right, folks. Thanks for staying with us for another episode of Invasion of the Potty Snatchers, your one-stop shop for everything that goes chop, chop, chop. I have been your host, Noel John, and he has been your host, Vinny. Thank you so much for visiting us. We will be back. And love and peace out. Stay safe.
You're next.
You're next. Payload.